Hello and welcome to Lakeshore Academy. I am Tina and I'm glad you're with me today. As you saw in the description, I am talking about ways to improve your reading comprehension or your reading skills. Many times, the problem that we have with our children with reading comprehension, even if they don't have a learning disability, but I'm talking in particularly dealing with dyslexia, and even dysgraphia, because dysgraphia is a condition in which they have a hard time getting their thoughts onto paper. So when you're dealing with something like that as well, it can become very difficult when you're having reading comprehension. So these are some things that I have done with my son that has really proved to be beneficial. Not only with my son, but I also use them with my daughter, who is not dyslexic. But in both cases, these methods have proved to be beneficial for a child that has learning disabilities or differences and a child who does not. Because it seems as if most children at some point has some type of reading comprehension. I don't want to say delay, but difficulty at certain times. It just seems to be a natural occurrence for most children. It's very rare that you run across a child that hasn't had an issue with that, even if they don't have a known disability or not. But this is some things that I have personally done with my children and has really proved to be beneficial. When you're reading, any reading, I love to act it out. And when I say act it out, I mean like drama, like act out the part. So if we're reading a book and the characters are talking, we have several different characters, what I do is I give my son a part, and every time he sees that particular character, time for them to talk, I will have him say those words, and my daughter will have a part and I will have a part. And sometimes, depending on how much the reading is, we have several different characters in which we're all acting as, which makes for a very exciting reading. But the way that I also, so we won't get lost into acting out the things, after a certain point, I stop and I also ask them, what is the meaning or the main idea of what's going on in this particular thing? What is the situation? If it's a plot to the story, what's the plot of the story? What do you think the characters is trying to convey to us? So I ask different viewpoint questions throughout the reading. I just don't let them read the entire thing without stopping. I stop midway and I'll be like, ask them different viewpoint questions to make sure that they're really comprehending what they're reading. Also, another cool thing that you can do, which I also do as well with different readings, is that I'll put the reading to music. Say, for example, we're reading something and it seems like it's more of an upbeat, happy kind of story. So I will find upbeat, happy instrumental music in which I would accompany the story, and we will read the story with the music as the background, or have the children read it out, following the rhythm of whatever the type of music that's accompanying our reading. They find that very exciting and very, very fun. We also make up different fun games to help with the reading comprehension. It's just, if it's certain words within the reading that I feel like they may not quite understand, I will take those out and make those vocabulary words, and then I will also make a fun game out of it. So we would do spelling, we would do different activities with those spelling words in order for them to be able to really fully comprehend what those words mean in that particular reading that we're reading, and so that they can identify. And I usually give examples of what that word means, or show pictures if I can find any pictures that also explains what that particular word means, so that when they're reading it in the passage or reading it within the reading, they will be able to understand why the author chose to use that particular word to get their point across. So that has proven beneficial. Also, I particularly love to have my children read certain portions out loud. It's something about not only reading, but reading out loud and hearing yourself with the audio that also helps with reading comprehension. If you're all the time reading to yourself, you really don't get the full benefit if you're trying to teach reading comprehension. It's a great quality to be able to read to yourself, but if you're not understanding the information in which you are reading to yourself, then you're doing it in vain, so to speak. So it would be a very good idea to also read it out. Sometimes you can read something to yourself and you don't really get it, but when you say it out loud, there's something about it that you finally get that aha moment and you're able to really understand what that particular paragraph is talking about. So I really encourage you to have your child read out loud. That's very helpful with reading comprehension. If they have an audiobook, have them listen to the audiobook as well. We absolutely love doing poetry. So when we have poetry, we read that out loud as well. We read together. We look for, another thing that's pretty beneficial is when your child is reading, have them read in front of a mirror. And they look at themselves when they're reading. Off and on, you know, as they look, they read, they look down, they look up several times and they can read. It's something about you're looking at yourself, because we can be our own toughest critic. And it's something about seeing ourselves, hearing ourselves, and reading out loud that really proves to be very, very beneficial with reading comprehension. Reading together is very beneficial. Sometimes we all find the rhythm that we want to, in which we want to read, the speed in which we want to read, and we read something together out loud. That is beneficial too, because you can hear how the other people say the words. You can also really help the information to soak deeper into your minds. And also, what I like to do is sometime with my son, I have him read a book that is a little over his grade level, even though I know that he may have difficulty reading a particular book. I not only let him read books that is his grade level or below, I love going above his grade level so he can have some leeway for difficulty so that he can really push himself. And then I have him read it. And then the only time that I come in and help is when it's necessary. So if he gets to a word within that reading and he can't pronounce it at first, I give him a little while to try to sound it out, to try to get it to himself, and he still hasn't got it yet, then I come in and give him that guidance and tell him how the word, well, pronounce the word. And then after that, I have him go back and read from the beginning of that paragraph or from the beginning of that sentence in which that word was in that he could not pronounce, and have him read it again and read it again. And if he mess it up, I have him go back over and read it again. And I kid you not, by doing that method, within time, he automatically remembers the word. And even when he reads it in other books, he still identifies with the word because he remembers the repetition and he remembers the word. And usually if it's a word that he doesn't know, I actually give him the definition. I give him illustrations about the word. I give him an example of how the word is, so that, because my son is a visual learner as well, so if I can find a picture in which describes that particular word, I show him the picture. I give him an example. I give him an illustration of how this word is used, not only within the passage in which we are reading, but within regular life. So having him able to show those real life examples of how that word is functional in real life, that actually helps him as well. So again, let's recap on how you guys can build reading comprehension or improving your reading skills and comprehension with your child, or this could be for you yourself, and there's nothing wrong with that. First, some things that I have done in my homeschool: we act out the reading. Next, we put our reading to music. Next, we make a fun game out of the words in which the child has difficulty knowing. We make a game out of it, or a game within the passage or the reading. You read to your child, which is very, very important. So never underestimate reading aloud to your child or reading to your child. That, even big children, if they want to listen to you read to them, that is so beneficial. Next, we read aloud poems, and we also read reinforcing looking in the mirror. While we're reading, look in the mirror. So the child is able to not only hear, but they're also able to see themselves as they're reading. We also read together as a family. Sometimes reading together at the exact same time, so we get our rhythm and we read for a certain period of time together, so they can also hear everybody, and it really, really works. And also we read. I typically like to give my child, like I said before, a book that's over his grade level as well, as a challenge, and see how far he gets with that. And then if he have any difficulties, then I come in as a coach or as a guide to help him to understand what he did not know. And once I do that, he usually just take off. He can do it very, very well after that. And then say, for example, that child misses that word. I usually have the child go all the way back to that sentence in which that word is in, or reread the paragraph in which that particular word or words are in, so that they will be able to identify the words. And I also do like illustrations and explain what that particular word means, so that they'll be able to get a visual, so that when they come across that word will have significance and value, because now it's not just a word they don't know, it's a word that they know, they have an illustration, that word has a purpose now. So that's another thing that I like to do, and it has really proven to be very beneficial for both of my children to do, to have this reading comprehension done in this particular way. It really helped my son tremendously, and my daughter, that we can really, they're comprehending so much, things that I didn't even think that they would be able to comprehend, especially with different types of poems that deals with symbolic stuff, or deal with, how can I say it? It means one thing, but when you read it, it's another, basically idioms. So they really understand, and you'll really be very, very pleased with how much this particular method will help your child to do reading comprehension in a less stressful way. And it's fun at the same time. So this is Tina from Lakeshore Academy. Have a good day.